Hello, everybody. Sharanja, say hello.
Hello.
Welcome to, what is this, number 13 of Brown Girls in the Rain Book Club, where today we will be discussing Jane Igharo's Ties That Tether. So, am I doing the thing or you?
I can do it.
All right, take it away.
Hi, guys. So, as Anika just mentioned, we read Ties That Tether by Jane Igharo. And this is the summary I have for you guys. So, Azeri is a 25-year-old Nigerian Canadian woman living in Toronto. She's a successful businesswoman with her own mind, and she's very independent. However, she's not married, and in the eyes of her overbearing Nigerian mother, this is kind of unacceptable. So, to help her daughter find a suitable Edo husband, so in Nigeria, she's from a culture called the Edo or Edo, and her mother keeps setting her up with people from the same culture who she thinks is an appropriate match for her daughter. However, most of these dates that Azeri goes on are a complete disaster. They're never a real match for her. And it's in the aftermath of one of these dates that, in order to like relax before she goes home, she sort of goes to the hotel lounge and just sits for a couple minutes thinking about what she's going to tell her mom, how this date also did not go well. And it's there that she meets Raphael, who is a Spanish man who just recently returned to Toronto from New York City. And they get to talking, they really hit it off well, and one thing leads to another, and they have a very passionate one night stand. And it's all great until Azeri wakes up the next morning and she realizes that, what she had with Raphael for that one night was wonderful, but it can't continue because Raphael is not Nigerian. He's not Edo. There's no future with him in that case, because this goes back to a promise that Azeri made to her father when she was 12. He was dying, and on his deathbed, he made Azeri promise that she would never marry anyone who wasn't Edo, who wasn't from their culture. And this was right before she moved to Canada. So from she was 12 years old, she's only ever dated Nigerian men. But she's never clicked with anyone in the way that she clicked with Raphael in that one night. But she said, I'm a good Nigerian girl. I made a promise to my dad. My mom expects this of me. I'm just going to say goodbye to Raphael, and that's it. And then surprisingly, Raphael shows up at Azeri's workplace as the company's newest employee. So she's shocked, and not only for that, but there's also another reason why this is going to cause some problems for her. She's pregnant from that one night stand, so she she has this secret that she can't tell her mom and dad. She can't tell her mom, and she
But
also
hold on, she doesn't know she's pregnant when
she
she
doesn't know
first
she's pregnant
meets him back.
until a
Yeah,
few
like,
days after, but she has the secret that she can't tell her mom, obviously, because if she tells her mom that she's pregnant by someone who's not Nigerian, she's going to get kicked out. And she also doesn't feel comfortable speaking to Raphael about this because she just met him, she doesn't know him that well. And then another issue is she's actually falling for Raphael. Like Raphael is turning into someone that she can really see herself being with, but it leads to this question of, if I start this relationship with Raphael, do I have to say goodbye to my mom? And that's a real question, like, because her mom's very strict about who she can date, who she can marry. So it was an interesting book. There were a lot of things that annoyed me as well at the same time, but it was a fun read. It was a very short read too. Like I got through it in like 2 to 3 days max.
yeah,
So what did you think, Anika?
it's a very short read. It was good. Some things you missed were, so they move when she's 12, but she has a younger sister. So because her sister was asleep when her father, like, I guess, had his final words, only Azeri had to make the promise that she'll, like, marry a Nigerian man. Like, her sister's not bound by that promise, but she's living her life bound to that promise, as well as her mom holding it over her head that she promised that to their dead father, as well as growing up. she was always the obedient daughter, the obedient Nigerian daughter, and her sister was more rebellious. So
Mhm.
she always like held her tongue. Um, oh, and an important thing is that when they moved to Canada, they actually moved in with their father's brother. That's an important part of the story. So their father's brother basically like takes them in, and he he uses the Edo word for like my children, my daughter, because he's like, I'm living up to my brother's wishes, and I'm taking you in like my own. So yeah, um, I like the book. I feel like some parts were rushed, like towards the ending, about like Raphael's past. Like Raphael's past has been built up throughout the book, but then I feel like the actual moment where like we learn about his past, like that whole thing was kind of rushed, where you find out that he was married before.
I feel like the author didn't do enough to flesh him out as a character. He he just seemed like like the very like typical default white savior who just comes in
Mhm.
to, help out the main character. But we like you said, we didn't really learn that much about him until like literally the last 50 pages of the book.
Yeah, and every time he had his chapters, like the chapter was just 2 pages.
Mhm. Yeah. Another thing I want to mention is that the pacing throughout the book is very off and on. Like some chapters would be longer than the other, and like it would the narrative was split between Azeri and Raphael, but like clearly Azeri got more chapters too, right? And then the chapters that Raphael got were just like rushed through.
Hmm.
Also, I wanted to make a point about the lovemaking scene. So the very first
Page
lovemaking scene,
142. Oh, not the very first one, but page
well, the very
142 is
first one
steamy.
was just like she didn't even like describe what went down. It was very much like a Jane Austen, like behind the doors. You're just left to the imagination what's going on. And then page 142, it was just like
There
so
was no
descriptive.
imagination.
I wasn't expecting that.
Everything's laid out there.
I'm like, okay, okay.
I I had to like close the book at times because I'm like, is this actually what's happening?
You closed the book. I was reading like this. Oh, okay,
Well, that's because
okay.
I told you before you got there. I'm like, page 142.
It wasn't what I was expecting just because the first love scene, you would normally think that the first love scene is like super descriptive, but the way she wrote it was just like it's up to your imagination for you to believe what happened. And
This
then
is
that came and
definitely
I'm like,
not up to your
oh.
imagination. When his boxers come off, my eyes expand, astounded and ecstatic, as I take in his size.
And I'm like, didn't you already have sex with him? You should already know this.
I watch him roll the latex over his considerable length. My heart flutters rapidly.
But this is the
And
second
that's
time.
that's that's not even like that's the tame part.
That's the tame part too. But next topic. um,
You
what I
can
want
go
to
over.
say.
Oh wait, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, so let's say that this book does have a villain, and the villain is her mother. But I have an issue with the way that the mother was characterized in the story. She was very very stereotypical, like immigrant mother, like so strict. It can only be my way or the highway. Even that scene where so so Azeri does come out and say like I'm with Raphael, I'm having his baby, and her mother was just like, well, you're not my daughter anymore. I'm not your mother. You're dead to
She
me.
full
And then
on disowns her.
full on disowns her. And then the next scene is like a family
8 months
meeting.
without talking.
Yeah, like the next scene is like a family meeting, and they're waiting for the mother to come, and she comes in late wearing funeral attire. And I'm just like, this is like a Nollywood scene, like a
Cause,
Nollywood.
Cause she's saying that she's mourning her daughter that she lost because she don't have an oldest daughter anymore.
I'm just like, it. What I'm trying to say is just like, it's not. I felt that it wasn't realistic to life. The fact that like she was super super controlling in this one aspect of life, even though she herself has also been living in Canada for 20 years at this point, right?
I mean, I think that there are people like that
There are
because
people like that, but
'cause
if you're going to have a character like that in your story, you need to provide more context. You need to show the reader why they're like this. Like what are the factors that led to this person being this way? Instead when you have a character like that and there's no explanation behind it, it's just stereotypical in my opinion.
yeah, and I think it, as you said, you mentioned, it probably leads into the whole Nollywood thing too, because like that is a huge trope within the Nollywood thing.
Mhm.
Um, no, but
Like over
I had seen this TikTok before, which it basically explains like how a lot of children of immigrants experience this, how your parents, when they leave their country, it's like they're just remembering how life was in the year that they left. So they're holding you to that standard.
Mhm.
So then that's why, like, if you go back to their country and you're like, you're in North America and you're being held to a different standard, you're being sheltered, not allowed to do things, and the people back there having fun doing whatever they want, it's because they're just living life like freely in any like to go forward, but we're being held back to like the 80s or the
Mhm.
90s, the 70s, whenever our parents like
It's
came to.
it's like culture frozen in time,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
And like that could very much be how it is. Like her mom is holding her to the standard of Nigerian living when they left, but
Mhm.
not taking in like this is a new country, new cultures. Like, yes, you're trying to preserve your culture, but like your daughters are young enough that they're going to gain new culture. Say culture because it is Canada, new culture.
New culture. Well, what did you think about that promise that was made? Like the
It
promise
was
that
unrealistic. You can't
it's
put that on a 12-year-old.
you can't put that on the 12-year-old, but I'm also questioning why the author didn't give us any more context as to why that promise was even set in place to begin with. She could have related it back to like colonialism, the fact that like countries in Africa had to deal with like colonialism from British, and the culture that was in place at that time, their local culture was affected because of British colonialism. And so the
Yeah,
fact that you have this culture in your country that's already kind of like diluting itself, dying out because of these external pressures. And the reason why that people can choose to marry within their own group is to preserve that culture.
yeah,
But she didn't explain that in this book. So you have that promised in the book without context, and it just makes it seem like people who choose to marry within their culture are in some way shackled to their culture instead of,
yeah,
trying to embrace, trying to continue their culture. And the way that it was juxtaposed with her trying to fall in love, like trying to be with this man who wasn't part of her culture. Like there was also like this weird, how do you say it? This weird comparison between Raphael and the men that were in her culture, like the men that were like given as an example of like Edo men in the book.
Sharanja, can we discuss that whatless one, the one that her mom kept trying to put her with? What's his name?
Which one? Elijah?
Yes, Elijah.
Yeah, I have questions about that too.
All right, so let's get it on and popping. This man should not have a biblical name because that man is trash. So, for the people out there, she was actually like her mother didn't know that she had a relationship with Elijah when she was 19. But when she was 19, or was she younger than 19 and he was a little
She was
older?
he's older. He was at least like 23 or 24. She was 19.
Okay, so when she was 19, she was in love with this man. She was dating him on the low. They went to Bible camp. They were counselors, I think. She lost
Hmm.
her virginity to this guy. Next thing you know, he just next day up and leave with no
Yeah.
word.
He got a acceptance
He got
into
it,
Stanford.
and he got accepted into med school, but
Yeah, but
he
he didn't
didn't
call her until
explain
one
it.
month
Whatever,
after.
like she was calling, she was whatever. Like he just
Mhm.
ghosted her basically. So now her mother's coming to her saying like, "Yes, I found you this Edo man. He used to go to our church. He's a good man. I'm friends with his mother." he's a doctor. You can't do any better than that. Like, why don't you want this doctor? Blah, blah, blah. And like, even when she's with Raphael, like her mother keeps pushing this guy on her. And then to please her mother, she goes with this guy, even though she doesn't want to be with him. She tries, but obviously her heart's not in it. And even after he finds out she's pregnant for another person, he's just like still trying to get at her. But it's like, are you can't find you're a big doctor. You can't find anyone?
Yeah, that's
Like
exactly
you
what I was
disrespected her
thinking.
already, so go on with your business.
I'm like, you're a doctor. What, you can't find anyone else? What is it about her that's drawing you back? Yeah, you say you love her, but you didn't contact her within like what, 7 years? And yet now all you want is her. All you can think about is her, especially now that she's with someone else and she's having his baby. Also, how realistic is it that you as a man find out that the girl you're trying to date is pregnant with someone else's baby and yet you still want to be with her?
And a
That's
so-called white
question.
guy too, where people would know that's not your child.
Yeah, I have questions. Like how realistic is that?
But they're trying to
Especially
say
when
that
she's
like, oh,
not
it would be a throwback.
especially when she's not feeling you at all like that. Like she's not giving you the time of day and yet you're still going after her even though she's pregnant with another guy's baby. Like I don't get it.
Nah. He didn't love her at all. It was just all for
Yeah.
show.
It was all for show. Like he probably just wanted like a trophy wife.
Oh yeah, because she's banging. Like
She's
in
banging.
the book, like they talk about how she got a nice little body, she's smart. Like so her and Raphael work at the same firm, but they get put onto the same project because it's a Nigerian, yeah.
She's a
Of course it's
Nigerian.
a Nigerian person they're working for, like
Yeah.
a project. So it's a Nigerian and like I think it was Canadian trying to like amalgamate a business. So the two of them are on this project and like they work on it together, spend some late nights, but like she's better than Raphael. She is better at her job than Raphael. He's good, but
Yeah.
she's better. So she's
Yeah,
got
she's
the
very
brains, she's
smart.
got the body. Also, this man, Raphael, he's got money. Like money.
That's why I'm
How
like he's too good to be true. He
I'm
he has
thinking
a house in Bridal Path,
that's his
which is like
family house though.
that's his family house, but that says a lot about his
And
family.
the family spends summers in Spain.
Mhm.
But
Cuz
not
it's
only that, the both of them must have money or their job is paying. Like this is unrealistic because like Toronto is too expensive. Like people can't afford to live in Toronto. Like
yeah.
what are you doing? Drugs? But both
Especially
of
cuz
them both of
they
them
have
have like
apartments
prime
downtown
real estate. He has a penthouse suite
and drives
and
two
she
cars. One of them is a sports car,
yeah, and like not no normal sports car, but like some fancy one
some LC
that
500.
that Azari's like, oh my gosh, like when I tell my cousin that I saw this, he's gonna freak. And then Raphael's like, well, how's he gonna feel when you tell him that you drove it? And he let her drive his sports car.
That's why I tell you it was a little bit too good to be true.
Exactly. Because how are they having all them houses, them apartment buildings, them condos?
On a side note, one of the things I
Give me
liked
one.
I was gonna say, on a side note, I like the fact that the book was set in Toronto and a lot of the locations that they mentioned, I'm like, I know where that is. I think they mentioned the fact that her mother lives in Etobicoke, and I'm like, I know where that is.
Yeah, because reading, I'm like, so she lives downtown, but her mother definitely doesn't live downtown because downtown there is no big houses with front yard.
No, she lives in
Downtown
the suburbs.
you don't have to cut no grass because you don't have grass.
Hmm.
You have concrete pavement.
Like you
You
can
have a
tell
balcony.
you can tell who like Jane who wrote this book like she knows her stuff about Toronto because all the restaurants that she mentioned here, I'm like, oh yeah, I know what she's talking about. Like this is written by like a true Torontonian.
hmm Um, hold on. This book actually gave us discussion questions, so we can
Yeah.
go through them. Azeri describes her Canadian citizenship as a title that is both empowering and demanding because it requires her to give up part of her Nigerian culture so she can fit into her Canadian setting. Do you think many immigrants believe their citizenship is both empowering and demanding? Why or why not? I definitely feel that like being a being like a child of immigrants, it's very like obviously your parents want you to fit in to the culture, but they also don't hesitate at throwing that in your face like, "Oh, you North Americans,
Mhm.
you Canadians." It's
Mhm. Yeah.
like, "Hey, but like you chose to have me and raise me
You,
here."
you chose to have me here. You brought me here. You didn't give me a choice.
And it's like, yes, you need to like have your culture, but like any lack of culture that I have is your fault because you
Mhm.
didn't teach me this culture.
Yeah, because yeah, you didn't teach me. The other day, I was trying to tell my dad like this girl that I know was born in Canada, but she speaks Tamil like fluently, and I was telling her like, oh, how can she do it so well? And like I'm struggling, and she's like, oh, some people just have like natural talent for it, and I'm like, no, no, it's because they have parents who actually teach them how to do it.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, like oh, I
Like
feel like
there's a lot of children of immigrants who have I forget what the word is, but where you can understand it fully, but you can't speak the language at all.
yeah, that's a lot of people who are born here. Also,
But then again,
kids who immigrate here when they're young, they kind of lose their language too.
yeah, yeah. Or people who don't have exposure. Because like I say
Mhm.
this all the time. Like I feel like from coming from the Caribbean, the easiest country to come from is Jamaica because no matter where you go, you're going to find that community. But my mom, however, she doesn't have that community because she's never met anybody here from her country ever.
Not even one person
Not even one person.
outside her family.
Well, none of her family like from the Virgin Islands are here.
What about your aunt, the one who passed away like a few years ago? Isn't that her aunt?
Yeah, but like she's from Barbados.
Oh, well, okay. So, how do you think the promise constructed Azeri's perception of what a Nigerian woman should be?
Did you just skip something?
Yeah, because I feel like we already went over that part of
Okay,
the question.
how do I think the promise construct your perception?
Yeah.
Well, I feel like she probably felt less of a Nigerian woman because that was always like so heavily put on her and like with her not ending up or not with her falling in love with somebody who wasn't Nigerian, I think she felt less of a Nigerian.
hmm
Like she wasn't staying true to herself.
It's weird that we associate that with our cultural identity though, because I don't like if I were to go out with someone who wasn't brown, who wasn't Tamil, like I would still be Tamil. Like it wouldn't make me any more less of that in terms of my identity. But why do you think that people think that they become less when they go out with someone or they marry someone outside their culture?
Why? I feel like it's like a dilution kind of. Like if there's if there's two people from the same culture, you share it in everything of that culture. But if they're like not, then like you kind of have to lose some aspects of your culture in order to like gain.
hmm
That's what people feel. But I look at it as I know you've seen the movie Twitches, where they're talking about like the darkness and whatever is like absence of love, but like it's not that you're diminishing love. You can create more love. The same like if you have a child, if you when you have your firstborn, you love your child with all your heart. But when you have that second one, you're not taking your love away from that first one. You're creating more so that the two of them are both like full of love. The same way.
I can't believe you made a Twitches reference in this.
I'm a Disney kid.
I mean, I'm looking at it in the way that like, okay, so let's say I marry someone who is like me, born and raised in Canada and Tamil at the same time. I'm trying to think. My parents only instilled like the bare minimum knowledge of our culture in me. So I feel like I wouldn't be able to pass on anything noteworthy to my kid anyway, regardless if I marry a person who's Tamil or not. So I feel like it's a non-issue depending on who you are.
You're gonna get yourself a fob.
Don't stop. Don't talk like that. Don't
I'm
talk like that.
speaking
You want me
into
divorced by the
existence.
time I'm 35?
So in like 5, 6 years.
Yeah, that's what's gonna happen if
No, it's
I
not.
marry someone like that. And an example of a fob would be like the first guy that she dates in the book.
Yeah. Like, okay, so for you people listening and watching, basically the man didn't value her at all. It was just like, oh, well, when we get together, you're just gonna stay home. You're
Yeah,
not gonna
like
be working.
you're not
Oh,
gonna be working,
like
right?
this is my favorite meal. Can you make this meal?
Mhm.
Or how many Edo dishes do you make? Because I only eat those. It's like, okay.
Yeah. It was all the conversation was about was what she could do for him.
And about the culture.
Yeah,
Not even
that's
like, oh, you can love me, you can care for me. No, it's just like being the best Nigerian wife.
that's a prime example of a fob. And I actually met someone like that when I was dating people through my mom and dad a few years ago. Someone who kind of had the same questioning line. I'm like, oh, okay, well,
The door,
I'm glad
it's
to
right
see.
here. Get to step in.
It was the all those scenes with her and her mom and like her trying to like push this idea of like the appropriate man to marry on her daughter. It reminded me of that show, Indian Matchmaking.
Oh my gosh, I
On
love that show.
Yeah, it reminded me of it. Like, did you see like the similarities between some of the things that they were talking about in the book versus the show?
Yeah. Except
And
in
it's
this
like
case, the mom was the matchmaker.
the mom was the matchmaker, but like, in a lot of cases, like the parents are usually
And she
the first
wasn't good at it.
matchmaker. But it's interesting to see that it's like even though it's like a different culture, they still look at the same factors when they're talking about arranging marriages, which is
Yeah.
money, background, religion. Religion plays a part in this book too, by the way, like a side plot, but
You think so?
just like the whole community aspect of like going to church and having to worry about what the people in the church will say if they ever find out what your daughter is doing. Things like that.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say like it wasn't like a Muslim
It wasn't
versus
a huge plot, but
Christianity. It was more like that her mother was in the church and she's trying to find people in the church for her.
well, like it but at the same time, I feel like a lot of the people that she was worried about finding out what her daughter was doing were people from that community in the church.
I guess so. Yeah. Let's say
Oh,
like if anything, realistically, her mom instead of like looking for like a like how you said the first one that she was on a date with, I'm assuming he was from Nigeria or whatever. But then again, so is Azeri. But I was gonna say that because I know personally for me, all the time I always knew I'm like, I want I want somebody who is in the same kind of like is like me in that I want somebody of Caribbean like heritage, like somebody whose parents are from the Caribbean, but I don't want somebody who's from the Caribbean because then people
like
be acting
Jamaica.
whatless. They're a different kind of breed. No man is gonna be playing me. Nope, I know you. I know these people.
I mean, I'm like you in the sense that like I
And look
want
at me,
someone who's similar to
a
me.
young Greg, a young Greg here. Born and raised.
Born
Next
and
town over.
Greg is a Jamaican background, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you
And let
spoke
me
it out
tell you,
into the
I
universe.
don't want one of them. I don't want one of them true Jamaicans.
Greg's not a true Jamaican.
No, like born raised. Just come here at the age of 22.
Oh, did we mention this? The whole like reveal of the mom
No,
being
we
in a
didn't. You guys. So okay, wait, we have to backtrack a little bit. So we never mentioned her best friend at all. So her best friend's name is Christina, and Christina herself is half Nigerian, half white. Her mom's Nigerian, and her dad's was Italian.
Mhm.
So she's Azeri's having like some issues and stuff. So her best friend is like, "Oh, is it for your birthday or for Christmas? No, no, just before you have the baby, I'm gonna take you away so that we can have like a girls trip or whatever." So they went to Muskoka. So when they go to Muskoka, they see Christina's parents' vehicle there, and Azeri's like, "What? Why are your parents here?" She's like, "Oh, like she didn't tell you." Basically, Christina's was had planned this whole thing for Azeri to like have a discussion with her parents to kind of like rule out like the troubles and stuff of being in an interracial relationship. So Azeri talked to Christina's mom, and she said like how basically she feels like controlled by her mother, and like she can't breathe basically, and she's not able to live her own life. So Christina's mom like gives her advice that like when the moment that she found that like everything was okay and like she broke was when she was supposed to be getting married to another person, and she just walked out the church and went to Christina's dad. She just turned her back on everyone, and then when the baby was born, Christina, then people started to come around because a baby brings people together. So Azeri goes home to her mom's house. She storms in, and she like barges into her mom's room, finds her mom naked in bed with none other than her own uncle, her father's own brother.
brother.
And
And
she's shocked.
I was shocked. Also because like she's been so gung ho about Azeri marrying like the correct Edo man, and then she was carrying on this whole affair with her
She
husband's
well,
brother. Or,
Azeri's like it's an affair, but the mother's like it's not an affair. We've been dating for over a year, but you've been hiding it from everybody. Cause Azeri's like, does her sister like does her younger sister know? Does her cousin know? Like nobody knows.
yeah. And it goes back to like the hypocrisy. It's very hypocritical for her to do that. Like she's well within her right to do that, by the way, but it's the fact that like she's doing something that's I would believe is taboo in her culture, but she's
Yeah,
not.
I mean, is she in her right though? If she's lording things over her daughter's head about this and the next thing, but she's there, she's not married to the man yet.
Hmm.
She's
Yeah,
having a secret relationship. You're a
she's having
big
a
Christian.
full-on relationship.
You're a big Christian woman, but you in bed with your husband's brother, who you're not married to.
And to make the situation worse, she actually didn't speak with Azeri for 3 months after finding out about
The
Raphael and the
pregnancy.
baby. She didn't speak to her for 3 months, and this was during the time Azeri was trying to call her. She even showed up the house. No, no contact whatsoever.
She only started talking to her back when Azeri left Raphael. She broke up with Raphael and then said she would try to go back with Elijah or whatever his name is.
Hmm. While and as this was going on, she was having an affair with the uncle
She was having an affair with the uncle before Azeri got pregnant. If
before
it's been
Azeri
over a year.
over a year. Yeah. So it's
And then Azeri is telling her mother, she's like, but what about my father, blah blah. And the mother's like, oh, I've mourned your father for like 12 years, but the thing is you mourned him, but you're not letting you've mourned him and you have moved on, but you're holding that over your daughter's head. Like your
Yeah.
husband died. She made the promise, yes, but she was a little girl,
She
and
was a little girl. Exactly.
you're making her. You're holding it over. Keep saying like, oh, if your father was here, blah blah. Oh, your father wouldn't like this, blah blah blah. Like no,
Yeah.
my father
Yeah.
wouldn't like you being in bed with his brother.
Yeah. Yeah. Like she was making her kids follow a promise to a dead man. A man
Yeah.
who has no opinion. Yeah, exactly. It's a family affair.
No. Only Donatello showed up, no Michelangelo.
But that scene alone was crazy. Also, this is the most ridiculous story I've read in a while, which is why I liked it so much.
Let me go back to these questions. um, when Azeri is around her family, she doesn't feel pressure of being wedged between two worlds. According to her, she isn't Nigerian Canadian, but just Nigerian. Do you think some immigrants often have two sides to them? One they present to their world and one they reserve for the comfort of family? And why do you think that is?
Well, you have to fit in once you leave your house, right?
Well, more so,
Like,
okay, when you leave home, what do you consider yourself? Are you Canadian? Are you Sri Lankan? Are you Tamil Canadian? What do you consider yourself?
when I leave the house and I'm just like at school or in the workplace, I just assume that I'm like Canadian. But when I'm at home, I'm Sri Lankan. I'm Tam. Well, I'm not Sri Lankan. I just say I'm Tamil.
Tamil, yeah. But like, okay, so you know how people are very like, oh, I'm Italian Canadian, or I'm actually no, I take this back because that's more of an American thing, like where they have to specify, I'm Chinese American, I'm Korean American.
Hmm.
With us, we always just assume like, okay, like you're Canadian, but like your background would be like, oh, I'm Korean, I'm Jamaican.
Yeah. No, people really don't
Like
hyphenate.
like I know that like the politically correct thing in America now is you're African American, but we don't say African Canadian. You're black.
Yeah, you just say you're black.
You're black. Like, and the thing is, it's not like I guess like in I know it sometimes in the States, people are like, oh, like I'm not black, I'm African, like because I'm from Africa, or like, oh, I'm from this country, I'm Haitian, I'm whatever. But like here, you're black, but like you within the umbrella term of black, you could be like you're Jamaican, you're Haitian, you're Nigerian, you're Ghanaian. The same way it's like you're brown.
Yeah, but I rarely say I'm brown. I don't
No,
I
but I
don't.
mean not like but you know what I mean, like how
Yeah,
we don't have like the hyphenated term. We don't use the
yeah.
hyphenated
We use like
terms.
homogenized terms for sure. I'm just trying to think though, like has there ever been an experience where I had to like separate the two identities from each other? Just trying to think. I mean, when I'm meeting new people and like when I'm meeting like white people, like truly white people, and I see like the differences between how I was raised and how they were raised, it's sometimes I feel that the identity more intensely
Clashes.
then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause I mean, like, yes, I'm Canadian. I won't deny that I'm Canadian. However, like my parents' background is an important part of me.
Hmm.
And like, I don't know, like my parents, especially my dad, tried very hard to teach me the histories and the culture from the time I was very young. So it's not like I don't know my culture, where I know a lot of people, they're just XYZ by name alone. Like it's like, yeah, my my parents are from here or my grandparents are from here, but I don't know anything about that. Like my parents try very hard to keep us like every single day when we're having dinner, my parents are having conversation about like the news in the Virgin Islands or the news in Barbados. So it's like
Mhm.
that is a very much a part of my culture, in that like we watch the Canadian news, but while we're watching like CP20, not we're watching like City News or CTV, like they're
Mhm.
also having conversations about like what else is going on
In
within
the
their
world.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where I know that a lot of people, they like the Caribbean music, they like whatever, but like what do you know about your so-called country? Like
Other than
you like the dance hall and you like to dance soca, but like what's going on in your country?
mhm.
What can you do for your country? Can you
Mhm.
advocate for the people who are being gunned down or the people who are going missing? Like being a part of a culture is more than just a name, you know?
It's more than just knowing the food and the music too.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's like how you're posting the whole like censorship thing going on.
Mhm.
Like that is something that's hidden, but like you're keeping up with your culture and spreading that, making it aware to people.
Mhm. Yeah. This got really deep.
Doesn't it always?
Doesn't always.
um oh, both Azeri and Raphael experienced the death of loved ones. How do you think their losses impacted the development of their relationship and how they interacted with each other? Well, probably for this much of the book, we didn't know exactly what was going on with Raphael.
We got like little hints and clues that he went through something, but they never really specified that, oh, he was married and his wife died in a car accident while she was pregnant and her baby was due in like a few days.
And yeah, so he lost a wife and a 9 month old. Well, a 9 month in vitro, in
Mm-hmm.
utero, in vitro.
Yeah, that was something I wish that they had expanded upon from the beginning of the book. I didn't want to wait till the end just to see like, oh, he has trauma too. Look at this. Now they're
Yeah,
perfect for each other.
'cause in the book you just like, okay, you kind of like assume that okay, he had like a girlfriend and something may have happened to her, like she died, but like I didn't know he was married. I didn't know like what happened. I knew something to do with like I assumed she had died because at some point they said like he had the blood on his hands. But I'm like, did he go crazy and
Yeah, it
kill
was
her?
very like for a while there I thought it was going to be something like his wife killed herself or something like that.
Yeah.
But it was a car accident, but my question is why did we have to wait so long? Like literally the last like 20 pages of the book is when this secret is revealed. And my question is like why do we need to wait this long to get character development from him? Also, I want to say
Um,
going back to the question, so it it seemed like it seemed like the author was trying to say that people who go through trauma, like a specific type of like trauma, like, as in like losing someone you love, that you're able to recognize it within just by like looking at the person's eyes. Because Azeri was talking about his eyes a lot. The fact that like she noticed that there's like a certain hollowness, like a certain
yeah.
emptiness. Like he would just get this far away look and just
Yeah.
drift off at any given time. And I'm just like that's one way to show trauma, but people express that in different ways too, right? Someone could have had like the utmost trauma in their lives, but they on the outside they look bubbly, they look happy, right?
Yeah. I think it was more she saying that like, like obviously they say your eyes Sriracha and this Tim Hortons. They say your eyes are your window to your soul, right? So
Mhm.
I find that a lot where like you can tell like when somebody's off by their eyes. But the thing is you have to know the person. You
Mhm.
can't just meet the person and then just be like, oh whatever. Like you have to that has to be somebody that you're you're always with, that you're like very, very familiar with to know like when things are off.
And can I say that like she didn't know him that well, and she was in a bang bang relationship with him, bang bang, having a
Well, I
baby.
mean, she knew him for what? an hour and she banged him.
She banged him. And I thought so one of her issues with him was the fact that he wasn't opening up to her, right? But the fact that like she was asking him these questions about like, who is this picture of this woman that you have in your desk? Like, who is that? Or he went to New York for a work related trip and he came back super distant from her.
Yeah.
And he wasn't forthcoming with the information about his past, right? But for some people, it takes years for them to go out and admit what they had gone through, especially to a new person, especially in a relationship, right? You can't expect all of that to happen within like what, 6 months, 7 months at this point. And this was trauma that he's been dealing with for 3 years, right? This was his first relationship after
at the same time, like it kind of like affects her too, in that like, for example, when they were at Pottery Barn or whatever, and they met his can't really say his ex-wife, because like
his
his deceased wife, when they had met his deceased wife's parents, and like he introduced them, but he didn't say who it was after. Like obviously you might not say that in the moment because like you have to explain yourself, but like he didn't say it afterwards. And like as a person, you're having like red flags and you're in that moment and like the person's not explaining it to you. That's very frustrating,
especially when she's giving up so much just to be with him, right? She's essentially giving up her own
and
relationship.
She's big pregnant too. Like you have like pregnancy hormones and stuff, so like that's just gonna set her off even more, and her feelings are valid in that moment.
Yeah, she didn't find out that he was married until the first time that she had a dinner with his side of the family, with his parents. So, and he, even then, he didn't say it. It was his mom who said, "Oh,
wasn't his brother?
His brother said like, "Oh, I haven't seen you this happy since Sophia died." And then Zeri's like, "Who's Sophia?" And they were like, "Oh, that's his wife who died." And he, even then, he didn't admit anything to her. Like I feel like that's so dirty. Imagine Greg did that.
Like, Greg, she's throwing you under the bus here.
Imagine Greg came out and said like, "Oh, I was married before."
Gregory would never do that.
I know. Greg's a nice person. Greg's a good person. Cheers. Anika, can I mention one more thing about the book itself?
Yeah.
The way it was written had me wondering who the target audience was, because I know it's a book about like Nigerian people, Nigerian culture, but the way it was written made it seem like it wasn't meant to be read by Nigerian people, just because all the terms that were like Edo and like Nigerian, it was always like italicized and then followed by like the definition of the word. There was like a lot of exposition, especially when they went to the West African restaurant and they were explaining like, "Oh, this is a goosey. You dip it in the fufu and then like you eat it like this." I'm like, if your audience was West African, if your audience was Nigerian, you wouldn't have to explain all of that. People would just know, right?
Well, I mean, obviously the audience is for Torontonians.
Yeah, but I'm like, why can't you just expect like people can Google now. You don't need to explain everything in the book. People can Google, like people have Google on their phones now. Like we should prioritize people like doing their own research. You don't have to like explain every little thing.
I don't know. Remember, this is also her debut novel.
I mean, like, I always see this with books that are deemed like multicultural, where like in the book, all the multicultural terms and like cultural ideas, they're always like italicized or put in quotation marks, and then it's just like filled in with like what it means. And I'm like, if I'm the target audience for this book and I'm from that culture, you don't have to do all that. Like I would just know. Like I don't need all this explanation, right? Are
Like,
you writing towards me or towards this other group of people?
The way I look at it is that when it's italicized, it's like accented. 'Cause it's said in a different language, or it's like said with that accent. The same way that like abuela is italicized because that's Spanish,
Mm-hmm.
or like
Mm-hmm.
if it's a proper name in that like Star Wars and Star Trek, that's italicized.
Mm-hmm.
Or like also when she's thinking in her head, when she's thinking in her head, it's italicized. But I feel you. I feel what you're saying. Like there's no need to have definitions.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean sometimes definitions are needed. Like you say, okay, if it's not the target audience, if it's like actually meant for somebody of West Africa. So say this is a book and it's actually like truly written like if you're in Toronto and the Toronto slang was going to be in this book. You don't think that people in like let's say America or elsewhere need a definition as to what we're talking about?
Well, in a
The
way,
UK
Toronto
the
slang
UK
is
wouldn't need it.
Jamaican slang.
No, no, no,
Toronto
no.
slang
It's
is
Caribbean, not
it's
Jamaican.
Caribbean slang. So, but then that goes back to me saying, like, why can't you research it yourself? Like,
Because
why
you
does someone
can't
have to do the
research
research
certain
for you?
slang,
You can Google it. There's Urban Dictionary now.
but Urban Dictionary doesn't have everything.
But does that take away from your reading experience if you don't know the one word?
If it's a bunch of words, yeah.
I don't know. I
Because
have.
if okay, like if it's just like a one word thrown in here and there, let's say like how you and I might speak, just throw it in the word. But if it's like if the person is speaking majority in slang or majority in like those languages,
Mhm.
then you're gonna need it. The same way, have you seen like on YouTube or on Instagram how there might be a video from Toronto, from the Toronto Mandem or something, and they have to like have an English
Sometimes.
caption for people to understand what's happening. You
Yeah.
feel me?
Yeah. I feel you. Oh my god.
Because I tell you, sometimes there be some times where I'm like, what did they say? What you saying?
What you say?
Can you repeat that one more time? One more again.
To be fair, it's its own language. It's its own language at this point.
See, researching cultural slang on the internet can be really misleading. It's true because it's like okay, not only slang, but we'll put a Caribbean spin on this. Different islands, or even say like different provinces, different territories, different states might have one word, but that one word means different things. Like pencil sharpener might mean pencil sharpener to me, but to you that might be some sexual something because you're trying to sharpen your pencil.
I see what you're
I
saying.
digress.
No, I get what you're saying. It just makes me question like who the target audience would have been for this. I guess if you're going for like a global audience, then maybe you need to put those definitions and explanations in there. But I don't know. I feel like it's not needed in every case.
Side note, I'm gonna put a pin in the discussion for a second. So the cover of was this book was strictly a cover buy because when
Yeah.
I tell you, obviously I've been looking for all these BIPOC books, but like
This
the
cover
book
is beautiful.
the book was on the shelf like this, and I was doing what I shouldn't be doing, and I was chatting my mouth during work, and I was there talking, standing up to people talking. I like casually look back behind me, see the book, and I like look back, and I immediately went, I'm like, yo, what's this book? Like this cover, like is she black? Tell me that this person's not like tell me this book is not just using a black face and the person actually is black. So I immediately go to the back. I'm like, oh, she African. Oh, it
She,
says
she
Canada. Oh, it says Toronto. I'm buying this book.
and she kind of looks like the cover too. She's very
Yeah.
beautiful. U of T graduate with a journalism degree. She was say and I watched an interview with the author prior to this discussion, and she was saying that she based this story and some of the characters in the book, like in her family, off her own family.
I assumed that like the title character was her because they both came to Canada from Nigeria at the
It
age of 12.
it is she does draw experiences from her own life,
Yeah.
and the characters in the book are essentially like her own family in a way. Her mother's not like that in real life, though. She said her mom is just like a amalgamation of attitudes, but this essentially is like her experience.
Wouldn't you like to know? Rock this mic. um yeah, I feel like we did not answer this question. How do you think their losses impacted the development of their relationship and how they reacted with each other? I think that her loss obviously definitely impacted her because she's living her whole life based on the death of her father and the promise made to him, and her mother's holding that over her head too. And for Raphael, the death of his wife and child is being held over him too, and because he's probably scared to love again because he lost everything that he loved in one moment.
He also blames himself for what happened.
Yeah, because he was driving and he doesn't want that to happen again.
I mean, I thought that was true to life. The fact that like when you go through something, it kind of shuts you down, especially in terms of communicating with people. You don't want to talk about your traumas. You don't want to talk about what you've been through, right? Because it sort of brings those memories back, right?
Mm-hmm. Azeri's mother was often harsh, knowing her actions were provoked by fear that her children would lose their culture. Do you think they were justified? And why do you think this?
I don't think they were justified. I think she was doing too much.
I think she was doing far too much. She was doing the most. And if I if there was any inkling of me thinking that it was justified, I lost all that when she was found in bed with her husband's brother.
Her dead husband's brother. Dead husband's brother, but still pretty
Listen, it
bad.
don't make no difference.
Yeah. Like I said, I really do feel like this character was just a stereotype of like the typical like strict immigrant mother who's not looking out for what her children actually want in life.
Yeah, like she didn't want them to thrive. It was always like, why are you wearing jeans and a t-shirt? Why you don't wear enough of our cultural outfits? You don't wear enough of these outfits.
There was a example where Azeri said that when she was younger, she used to have a big crush on
And
Antonio
Antonio
Banderas,
Banderas.
and she had a poster of him on her bedroom wall, and then her mom saw that and she ripped it down and she put up a poster of a Nigerian actor.
And guess what, Mama? She ended up with an Antonio Banderas still.
Actually, I do know. I have a
She
real life
got herself
example of
a
that.
Hispanic hottie.
Oh my gosh, I have a real life example of that. So my cousin actually had a poster of Usher when she was like 13 years old, and it's like he was shirtless and he was posing like this, and he was
Hmm.
right on the ceiling wall. So like when she woke up, it would be the first thing that she would see. And her
Yeah.
dad saw that, he ripped it down, and he put up a poster of the J.
Oh my gosh.
Can't even compare.
You see, the only the only man that I've had on my wall was Corbin Blue with the cast of High School Musical.
You're so
That
sweet. You're so
that or
wholesome.
Deadpool. Cause you know when Deadpool first came out and they had the poster where it's just like the the gun like by his crotch. It's like basically the picture's like his torso and his crotch. I had that. Cause it was free. I didn't go and buy that.
Okay.
I did not
Okay.
buy that.
I can't imagine your mom or your dad
She hated
like.
it. She hated it, but I kept it up. Now she currently hates all the comic book stuff.
I mean,
She's
at
like
least
every time she's there, she's like, Anika, why does it look so dark in here? I'm like, what are you talking about? The lights on. She's like, no, all this darkness on your walls. They're comics.
oh my gosh.
I'm like, People love them.
Yeah, it's art in its own way. I mean, my mom didn't get why I had this picture of Jason Momoa on my wall, but I'm like, you don't need to get it. Just don't touch it.
Oh my gosh, you come in and it's gone.
I know. I'd be so sad.
Um, what role do you think Azeri's family and friends played in her growth? Who do you think was the most influential character in her development and why?
It would be hard to pick one because I feel like
I already know mine.
it's like three people. It's Jacob, EC, her sister, and Christina because they form that supportive net for her, right? Like these are
I
the
was
people
gonna
who she
say
can be with herself with.
straight up, it's Christina's mom, because Christina's mom is the one who basically pushed her to have like that moment of growth. So I think she's the most influential character in her development. Because that
But then you
moment of her turning her back on her mom was
but then
her turning point.
you can also say that that it's Christina too then because Christina is the one who facilitated that conversation between Azaria and her mother.
Yeah, she facilitated it, but she wasn't the one who like Christina was, I guess, like the person holding the match, and her mom was the spark.
Hmm.
So if I have this candle, I'm not going to say I'm the person, like I'm the reason why this candle is lit. The fire is.
Well
It's
then you can't have one without the other though.
yeah, but the question was which one character was the most influential? So that's why my pick is Christina's mom. You can pick someone else.
I picked three people. I picked Jacob,
No,
EC,
man.
and Christina.
You
I
got
think
to
those are the holy trinity in this
you
case.
you got to make it to one.
Okay, then I'm gonna go with Christina then.
All right.
Because I feel like Christina provided that opportunity for her to see what her life could be like if she didn't marry a Nigerian man. I think she needed to see that in order for her to realize it's gonna be okay.
I felt bad for her sister because like she always viewed her sister as just like her baby sister and wouldn't really talk to her sister, tell her problems or what she was going through. So her sister always like wanted to be a part of her life, but she wouldn't quite let her in. And I felt bad because her sister was only 2 years younger than her, but
Hmm.
Azeri and Jacob were like what 4 years apart, and they were close. So it's like she could have had that closeness with her sister too, because they're closer in age. But she just always viewed her as like the baby.
Hmm.
But Jacob didn't treat her like that, being 4 years younger.
Hmm. It's also interesting to see how as EC and Azeri's personalities developed, even though that they're only 2 years apart, right?
Hmm.
Azeri, you could say she's very much like the typical like obedient daughter, like wants to follow her parents' rules, expectations, and then EC is the one who will talk back. She seems to be very rebellious in the book.
Hmm.
So and yet the difference is only 2 years different. Like they're only 2 years apart from each other, but there's such a wide gap between how their
Yeah,
personalities are.
like Azeri was paying her sister's tuition and stuff.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and that's her Azeri's mindset towards her sister. But that's
Yeah.
something like families just do for each other too, right? Also,
I
how much
feel like
money is Azeri making if she can live downtown and also pay
that's what
for
I mean. Because her
tuition?
sister's in law school. She's not
Yeah.
in no little like college course.
Hmm. Yeah.
And like Aseri, like she goes back to her mom's to cut the grass when she's like pregnant.
Yeah, that stuff in the book kind of made me realize like
Like,
this
first of all, like how does her mom allow this? Her mom is in this relationship with the uncle. Why don't you get the uncle to do it? Why wouldn't the uncle get Jacob to do it? Because that's his son and then that's his son's aunt.
well, to be fair, I don't think she knew she was pregnant at the time this was going on.
Even
But
still,
it made me wonder why wasn't Jacob doing this.
Yeah. Like it's not like gender roles or anything. The thing is, it's like she's not living around there.
But
She's
this is
literally having to go.
but I believe that this is something that Azeri wanted to do because she thought this was the expectation of what a good daughter is. I don't think this is something that was being asked of her. I think she just wanted to do it for her mom because she wanted to keep up that appearance of being like a good Edo daughter.
But same ways, it would be nice if somebody offered, because the
But do
time
you
when
think
she
she
was
would take it? Do you think that she would allow that though? Azeri?
probably
Probably not. The way
of
that
her
her
family, I think so, because the same way that like she fell asleep and then like okay, she got mad that Raphael went and did it, but when Raphael went over, then her uncle was there, Jacob was there, they're all getting along. So like if the two of you are there, why wouldn't you just do it?
maybe it goes back to just like chauvinistic attitudes, like housework is viewed as being like the woman's work.
Yeah, but that's if you're going to be talking about like the chauvinistic like outlooks, that would be a man's job because that's yard work. Women do stuff inside the home. All
Not in all cultures though. Not in all
in
cultures. Women do the yard work and the
the
housework.
the cutting of the grass, the doing the fences, all the handiwork and stuff, that's typically a man's job.
Not in all cultures though. Some cultures have different views of what is a man's job and what is a woman's job. And you'll see that in certain cultures that women are also outside doing yard work and keeping up the out the outside maintenance of the house.
Well, I don't know about this one. This culture, the Nigerians. TC, you don't go cut it for her.
My mom cuts a lot. As long as it's her choice.
Um, Azeri constantly compares her experiences to romantic movies. What's your favorite movie reference and why? I liked when she referenced Bridget Jones' Baby.
I like the proposal. The proposal that happens at the end of the book with Raphael proposing to Azir at the end, and he uses lines from all the romantic movies that Azeri likes.
So basically, every romantic movie.
And that's another thing that so the author really likes romantic movies, and so she put that in this book for the character.
He he did quotes from As Good as It Gets,
When Harry Met
When Harry
Sally.
Met Sally, Annie Hall, Water for Elephants, The Wedding Party, Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice. Also, he proposed to her when she was in the hospital giving after she gave birth, but he had the ring from like what their first date.
That's why I told you this is a romance book. That's how you know it's too good to be true.
Hey, Mr. Kelly, are you still there? You got that ring yet? I think you gotta read this book and get some hints.
Oh my god.
I'm just kidding.
Let's just end it right there.
No, there's a few more questions. In the novel, Azeri's mother asks, "How much more of yourself, of your culture, will you lose to accommodate him in your life? Do you think people who marry outside of their ethnicity have to give up part of their culture in order to make their relationship work? Why or why not?"
I don't think you give up your culture.
You guys
I
see
don't think
this? When you guys see me on the gram with a ring pop, just know. Just know what's up.
oh my gosh. I don't think you
It
give
better
up
be a
part of
blue
your
one.
culture, but you do have to compromise a lot.
Well, I
You also
mean,
have to figure out what's
in a
important in
sense,
your culture
in a
that you don't
sense,
want to
wouldn't
lose.
compromise be giving up a part?
Not necessarily. You could be like, "Oh, we're gonna practice this today." Like that's the thing. I want to know what are like the parts of a culture that are things that you could even give up, right? Because a lot of cultures, like culture is like your internal beliefs and like your language, and sometimes like religion plays a part into it. Too. So what part of that is something that you even can give up?
Um, like your question is, what can you give up culture wise? A
Yeah, because
lot,
it's
a
like it's
lot.
ingrained
Because
in you though.
no, because sometimes culture is doing something like an act of something. So like your culture could be wearing certain clothes, or going to certain like events, like participating in carnival,
But
participating like caravana.
but like so if I but that's the thing, I'm getting confused now because I can still go to Caravana, I can still go to Carnival and still be me. That's not me giving up my culture. That's me appreciating your culture.
It's giving it up by not. Okay, for example, in the book when they have the baby shower, it would be
Mhm.
giving up culture because she wanted to name her child like African name, and his parents are like, "Oh, our side of the family won't like recognize that those names."
But that's another thing where you can compromise, right? You can give a nickname, you can give a middle name, a first name, right? Why does it have to be just the one name? You could do a middle name, right? You could essentially have it both ways.
Why, Sharanja? Because the thing is, you can have a first name and a middle name, but there's always going to be a name that the person goes by. That's the winner. Your first
But
name's the winning name.
but this is also in a way subjective too, because for me, yeah, like names are important, but that's not something that I would mind giving up,
Or okay,
right?
so using the same reference of this, like it in a way it is giving up culture, because like where his parents are just like, oh, like we like these names just because like the way they sound, like within her culture each name has a meaning, and you're only given like a certain name based on that. So like I know like in a lot of African cultures, like whether it be in Ghana or Nigeria, depending on the day that you're born, you have a certain name. That's why a lot of like Africans have like the same name, because it's based on the day that you're born. So it's like it means Sunday born, Monday born, whatever, whatever. So like that could be by them saying like, no, I don't want like that name at all. Like that's giving up a big part of your culture.
But
Because like
okay.
in some cultures a name doesn't mean much, but in other cultures a name means a lot.
Hmm. So I guess it goes back to that thing I was saying. Like you have to determine what's important to you in terms of culture and have that discussion with your partner and try to figure out a middle ground, right? Because I wouldn't care if my kid had a Tamil name. Like, yeah, like it would be nice, but it's not a big thing for me, right?
So you'd be
But
fine with your child being named Susie?
we're not doing Susie, but we can do any
Yeah.
other English name. And also, why are you assuming that he's gonna have an English name? I could marry any other culture out here.
Who says Susie's an English name?
Susie is an English name.
Susie is the nickname for a French name, a French ass
Don't
name.
make assumptions, but
That's French, not English. Suzanne,
Susan,
Suzette.
that is not even that is no, but no. But yeah, like for me personally, I'm speaking personally, it doesn't matter in that case, but like why not just have that conversation with your partner and just try to figure out what are things that you won't compromise on or you will compromise on. Like I don't see it as an issue of just like losing your culture. You just have
because
to figure out.
because sometimes the compromising is like certain people find that if they have to compromise, that is a lack of their culture. There's no compromising happening.
Okay, then if it matters that much to you, then you need to marry someone within your own race or your
I
own culture.
know. That's how I feel about some people that I know. You shouldn't be with people if you're not all on board. You feel me?
I feel like if if it's that much of a big deal where you think that compromising is essentially losing yourself, then you shouldn't be with that person. Because at the end of the day, your goal is to be with that person and live
but
happily
but
ever after
but
with them.
Sharanja, but
Uh huh.
in
Yeah.
this case,
Yeah.
they ended up dating or whatever. But what happens? It's like they conceived a child on a one night stand. There was no conversations happening before that. Like the child's made. What are you
Mm-hmm.
compromising on?
Listen,
You need to
this is
have
a romance book. This is
you need to
this
have
is
you need to have these conversations about how you're going to raise your child before you make said child. Because
I feel
sometimes
like
it's a
a
little
lot
too
of people
late.
who have babies though are exactly in their situation.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, that's the problem. And then you get these kids who have racially
Confused.
confusion. Confusion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. Well, luckily you won't have to deal with this.
Why do you say that?
You know why I'm saying it? Because Greg is a nice person. He'll go your way on those things.
You're saying he's a just gonna bend over backwards for what my every whim. Greg, you know I'm wearing you down. I'm like, I'm gonna name my child this, and he didn't like it, but now he's like, it's growing on me. You can't take it back now.
Name name. I thought you were gonna go with Alejandro.
Yeah, Ali.
Ali. That's a cute name. Alejandro Ashton Kelly.
Greg is not. You're not
Greg is not.
pushover.
Greg is not a pushover. Greg is a nice person. But yeah, let's get off the topic of Greg. Oh my gosh.
Oh, we basically did this last one.
Yeah.
Zeri's mom and parent and Raphael's parents are immigrants. How do they approach preserving their cultures with their children? See, okay, so that's a problem too. Like there was no his parents were thinking of no compromise. They're just automatically saying we're going to raise the child to be a proper Spaniard
Yeah. They
without like the child is Nigerian.
they just automatically assumed that the kid was gonna be raised as a Spaniard, but I
But
have a
like
way with the I have an issue with the way they were shown in the book. The fact that like towards Azeri, they were very like easygoing, like, yeah, we accept you. Don't worry about it. We're so down for you. And then her mom was just on the other side of the spectrum being like, I'm so against this. I'm like, why is it that like the white parents are super duper cool and then you show the other side and it's just like, oh no, we're not having this.
probably because he said he's seen a black girl before, so they already knew.
Yeah, I don't know.
But um, I don't know if it's just my personal preference, not my personal opinion. I feel that whatever the mother's culture is what the child's like strongest culture. Like basically, a mother chooses the culture because a mother can't deny their child, a father can, right?
Hmm.
So a child will be raised how the mother wants it to be raised if it's in its custody. So like it's a control thing too. Like a mother, like think about it. Usually a mother is more controlling over their child as well in all aspects of their life. They have you like under their thumb. People like to say the man is the head of the household, but we all know that it's actually
The
the
moms,
women.
the
It's
moms are
actually the
holding it
women,
down.
and they only bring in the father for reinforcement.
Hmm. Yeah. That's why a lot of kids have more of a positive outlook on their dads too, because their dads are essentially only coming in when they have to give punishment, right?
Not only that, but it's also the way of socialization where the mother has to do everything, and like the father's just like the fun parent. He comes in
Mm-hmm.
to be like, oh, like play with the kid, but like the mom has to be dealing with them all the time.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of households too where like the mom works like a 9 to 5 job and she comes home and she still has to cook
Yeah,
dinner, do laundry, but then the father does the same thing where he has a 9 to 5 job. He comes home and he just chills.
yeah.
What was the
It was
question? I feel like
true.
we're getting off track. Getting
We're
off
talking
track.
about like immigrant parents and preserving their cultures. So, how Raphael's parents preserved the culture with him and his siblings was they would send them to Spain for the summers.
I also want to say that this effort to preserve culture is also more. My brother's being an idiot. You hear that?
Yeah,
Hold
make
on,
noises back at him.
dumbass. Um, um, this effort to preserve culture is just it's more emphasized when you have a daughter. I feel like
Yeah,
daughters are always the people who have to like carry the reputation, carry the culture forward in families. Whereas the sons can, even though they're raised in the culture too, they can get away with a lot more.
and you know why I think that is low key because so people want their daughters to marry within the culture because then, as you said, it preserves it. But a lot of cultures think that the boy could go and get with any other culture because they will convert those people to their culture, and a girl can't,
Mm,
which I think is the opposite.
yeah. No, you're right. There is that expectation where like if the son marries outside his culture, the bride is still expected to be coming home and like be part of the family. But if the daughter does the same thing, it's essentially she's gone. She's out of the family.
Hmm.
Maybe do you think it was like that in this book too? That sort of thinking, the fact that like if she married outside of the culture, it would be like
Like
they
she
didn't even
would,
they wouldn't even have to like disown her. She would just be gone automatically.
yeah. Like if she married out, like she's just like she's not around anymore. Like she's not a part of that culture anymore.
Hmm.
She'd always like be with the guy in his culture.
Hmm. Yeah, but it's also a self-fulfilling prophecy too. If you don't create an environment where she's welcome with her new family, she's not going to want to spend time with you,
Yup.
right?
Or like if she gets with somebody and you treat her badly, she's not gonna want to come back home.
Hmm. One thing I found true in the book is the fact that they were saying like a baby unites people. And it's sad to say that like that's true because a lot of times where someone marries outside of their race and it's someone that their family doesn't agree with, eventually like people don't get back together until a baby is born, cuz and it's because they want to be part of that baby's life, but it could be years where you're not talking to the person, right? And even then, just because the baby's there, it doesn't automatically heal the
The
wounds that are
bond,
created
yeah,
between people, right?
yeah.
It either
Especially,
takes it's weird because it either takes like a baby or someone dying for people to get over their differences and come back together.
hopefully, it's not like the mother dying while giving birth, because then you'll feel all types of different ways. Like, oh, I squandered what time I had with the mother,
Hmm.
and then you're just gonna like be putting that on the child.
Hmm. There was a scary moment in the book where I thought she was going to have a miscarriage,
Yeah,
like
which
near the
usually
end. Yeah, but she doesn't. It just happens to be like a very, very quick labor.
I was scared she wasn't gonna make it through.
Yeah. Yeah, they made it seem like she was dying, and then there was that scene where she's like following the light and then she hears like Raphael, and so she follows the light back to Raphael. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is so extra. Just die already."
Oh my god. I did like the epilogue though when you see their daughter when she's 5 years old. They have like the nice big house. Azeri's pregnant again with
Yeah.
Hopefully a boy this time.
I like that they had like a whole happily ever after scene, because usually when like romance books end, they're like it's very abrupt. It's just like,
Yeah.
oh, now we're together and that the end. But they actually had a whole scene where their whole like family life is like shown and explained afterwards. Like they're living in their own house. They got a kid on the way. They have their little girl Hope. Seems like to be the
Her
perfect
mother's
happily ever
married to
after.
the uncle.
Mm,
Her mother's married to her uncle, and her daughter calls the uncle grandpa.
yeah.
Because he's married to her grandma.
Yeah. That's keeping it in the family.
Yep.
Oh wow.
Oh, and like they never really touched on her sister's relationship. Like the sister's in a relationship with her best friend
They're
in a fake
not.
relationship.
It's like a fake
Fake relationship.
relationship.
That's what I mean. Like they never talked on it. I'm like, so like, is the friend gay? Is the sister gay? Are they each other's beard?
I thought one of them was gay and it
Yeah,
just wasn't explained in the book.
yeah.
It like literally they mentioned it for this much time and then it was never brought up again.
It was brought up maybe like 2 or 3 times.
I'm hoping that like she writes another book just about EC, the sister, just to cuz I liked her as a character. I feel like she could be she can be in her own book. But then there would be no conflict from the mom because her essentially at this point her mom is just chill unless they want to do something extra and make EC like LGBTQT
It could
plus.
be like it could be something that happens between the 5 years. Like maybe between those 5 years she finds out. Because the thing is, so her sister's 2 years younger than her. So her mom is probably gonna be like, when are you getting married?
Hmm.
It's gonna be that whole rhetoric all over again.
Hmm.
So like if she's in a fake relationship, mom's gonna be talking to the best friend like, so when are you gonna marry my daughter? When are you marrying my daughter? Oh,
Yeah.
I want grandkids.
And
I
then her
want for
daughter can be like,
Nigerian. I want full Nigerian grandkids.
and then her daughter can be like, well, mom, you're not getting those grandkids from me because I am gay.
Hmm. And
That
then
could
her
be
mom will fly
the
off the
premise for the
handle.
next book. That could be the premise for the next book. I'm down.
Gay? What do you mean gay? You are happy?
He's like, mom, I didn't go to the pride parade just to watch. I was in the march.
I was skinning out myself with my little tassels.
Yep. Oh my gosh. But yeah. Anika, you want to wrap it up?
Hold on.
We've been on here for an hour and a
Oh
half. I
no,
think
I
that's the
have to. We
longest
have
that.
to. That's not the longest we have. The first one was the longest, like
Oh,
3 hours.
okay.
Okay, everybody. So, quick reminder: our next one is going to be on March 14th, and it's going to be the Sea Prayer by Khalid Hosseini.
Hosseini. One thing
It's
we need to do is get all these names right.
Khalid Hosseini. Sea Prayer. He is the author of The Kite Runner. If anybody's read The Kite Runner, I read that in high school.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite authors of all time, so it's gonna be
So
a fun read.
Sharanta's gonna have a lot to say.
I'm gonna have a lot to say. It's a
Sharanta got me
beautiful
this
book.
book sleeve, which the book is in.
That one turned out really nice.
She looks like me when I had long hair.
It kind of looks like this cover, like the girl.
Kinda. Maybe maybe one day my hair will get to that length again.
The book sleeve is from Dreaming of Sealy.
So follow them
Follow
if you
them.
like books. But yeah. So that is March 14th. Other books that are going to be coming up within this new schedule are Concrete Rose, The
Far
Boat
Sector
People, Far Sector.
and Parable of the Sour.
Oh yes, and Parable.
And I think Sean's joining us for
Far
Far
Sector.
Sector. Okay.
Yes. By then it will be 11 issues out, and then we can discuss what we think is going to happen in the last and final issue. So I'm expecting this to be a good chat because TC reads that, Sean reads that, Greg reads that, and hopefully some other people on the Instagrams will join us to talk about Joe. I'm excited. Got my Joe back there by Gabby. But anyways, we will catch you guys on the flip side, which is March 14th. So later days.
Bye. Thanks for
Oh,
coming, guys.
and go watch the Melanin Marvels. Go follow me and my people on the Melanin Marvels and watch our podcasts.
Those
Yeah.
those podcasts are actually really well done. You need to give props to whoever does your
Adrian.
video editing. Yeah,
Adrian is our editor.
yeah.
That
Give
last
Adrian thumbs up.
the last one, he went off. Like last one was great editing. Also, we're going to be doing a crossover with another Toronto podcaster, which is Everything 90s. Follow them on Instagram. Her name is Shalina, and it's great. We're going to be talking about the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
One of my favorite 90s
That's my favorite, hence the Fresh Princess.
Princess.
So yeah, fun times everywhere, every day. We'll see you guys later. Ciao.
Bye.